Hey, everybody, it's Plant Based Life and Style. I'm Elysabeth Alfano. I'm so happy to have you with me. Oh my gosh. If you like spicy ethnic food like I do, maybe you like Mexican food or Cuban food, or who knows what your gig is, but it's not just your regular old burger. Today, I'm going to bring you a very specific story of someone who loved their traditional Cuban dishes, but oh gosh, wasn't maybe so great for cholesterol and the belly line. So I have Raydel Hernandez who's going to hop in here. He's just an author who's put out a book. It's delicious. It's vegan. It's Cuban. And he's going to be with me. So let me bring him right now so that we can hop on together. Hey, Raydel, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Great. It's good to have you with me. So I'd love to hear about your journey because I think it's actually a very common one. You know, food, of course, is so personal and intimate to all of us. So we grow up on our favorite dishes from our grandmothers or our mothers. And, it's very particular to the style where they cooked. And, way into our adult years to learn that, oh gosh, you mean that's not good for me? That's an awful feeling. And then you think, well, now what do I do? So tell us about your story where you're, coming from a deep Cuban tradition, and then you had to chuck it all, or did you? Maybe you didn't.
Well, like you mentioned, food is very, very personal and intimate to our family anyway. I think in general, Latin Americans or Cubans or Latin people, I think in general, food is like the showpiece, the centerpiece. It's what brings everybody together. And I grew up eating classic Cuban food. I mean, I had it all. We had pork and chicken and beef and rice and beans and all of it fried, all of it meat based. And I had about 10 years ago, I started having some health issues that manifested themselves in. At first, it started off as gout. I don't know if you're familiar with gout.
I am, but I'd love you to tell everyone else what gout is.
Well, gout is an acute arthritis that attacks in my case, it was my big toe, my right big toe, and it's crippling. It's almost like someone grabs you in a bear trap and just holds onto your toe for hours.
Awesome.
It's excruciating, and at first I didn't realize what it was. I thought I had stubbed my toe because I wrestled in judo for about 27 years. So I was used to having injuries, and I just figured I stubbed my toe in a competition or at a practice or something. And I didn't pay it much mind. I just kind of ground through it. And then I got a second attack like a week later. And then by the third attack, I was like, well, this can't be an injury because it's getting worse and it's coming frequently. So it compelled me to make a appointment with my primary care doctor. But he wasn't available. It's funny how you have doctors and they never can see you when you need to see them, right?
Funny how that works.
It never fails. So I had to go to an urgent care clinic near my house because that's the kind of pain that I was in. And I met a doctor there. She was a lady doctor. And for the life of me, I can't remember her name, even though she changed my entire life. And she looked at my toe, and she didn't need to take a blood test or anything. She knew exactly what it was. And she said to me, very frankly, and literally within 15 minutes of being there, she said that what I had, the gout, was a manifestation of the food that I was eating. She said that it's funny, and she said to me, listen very carefully to what I'm going to tell you, because everything I'm telling you is true. She said that gout, and there's two other ailments that are related. There's kidney stones, and there's prostate problems with males. She said all of those are genetically connected. You probably inherited that from your parents. And it's funny, she said that because my father had struggled with his prostate for as long as I can remember, and he had kidney stones. And I already had a kidney stone. So she had told me, she said basically that these symptoms that you have are kind of like the canary in the coal mine to a bigger issue, which was heart disease. And she said, look, you're on track. She's like, she said to me, you're on the express train, basically, to having a heart attack if you don't address these things. And the gout is just your body's way of letting you know that what you're eating is not right. And at first I didn't believe her. Like everybody else, I you don't think about these things until they're
Right.
presented right in front of you. And I was actually more disappointed with she said to me that at some point I'd have to become a vegan, or else I would just be stuck with medicines all my life. And when she said it to me, I was more upset about the idea of being a vegan than I was about taking pills. So I got a second opinion, and I got the second opinion from my doctor, and he told me all the traditional things the doctor says, that, these things are, genetically based. You're going to have an illness. There's not much you can do about it. And it got me thinking, because the lady at the clinic was so passionate about what she said to me, and she meant it. Like, she knew that that was the answer, and she just wanted to convey it to me. So I'm a pretty open-minded person, and I decided that I can't speak for everybody like this, but I'm not the kind of person that just lies down and accepts things. I need to research it, and I can't just take your word for it. I have to hear it from other people. So I researched it, and I came to the conclusion that at some point she was right. I mean, everything that I was eating was causing these illnesses, and I didn't want to shorten my life just by eating what I wanted to eat traditionally. So I came to the conclusion that I had to change. Now, I'm condensing this story into 5 minutes. I mean, this is really, I'd say, a couple of years worth of struggling with the idea of having to change and how do I change. And then I realized my favorite foods in the world, my Cuban cooking that I've gotten from my grandmother, that all was not acceptable food.
Right.
All of it was
Contributing.
it was all meat based. And so then I struggled with that because I didn't want to me, it's more than food. It's remembering my grandparents and remembering the things that they went through. And my grandmother kept our entire family. We were all, with the exception of me, political refugees from Cuba. And of course, I was born here, so I was the only American citizen. And my grandmother, she tied us all together and connected us to that culture through the food. Everything that I ate growing up was Cuban, all of it. Appetizers, cakes, desserts, snacks, it was all Cuban. And she gave me all these recipes. And then I found myself not being able to use them. So then I decided, well, if I'm going to be a vegan, then I want to find the vegan cookbook that is tied to my culture, and I couldn't find one. I couldn't. So I ended up converting her recipes over time. And it took me 5 years, but I got it right. And that's pretty much how the whole thing happened.
Yeah, I love this story. I hate to do this. We're going to run to break for radio because we're not just live today and going to be on the beat later on, but we're also on radio. So we're going to head to a quick break and we're going to come back and talk about the book. It's delicious. It's vegan. It's Cuban. We'll be right back. Sorry about that. I forgot to tell you about commercial breaks. Hey, everybody on Facebook. So glad that you're with me today. So glad to have you here. Okay, we're going to get right back into it right here. And here we go. Hey, everybody, Plant-Based Life and Style. I'm Elysabeth Alfano. Before the break, we had to cut off, and we're coming right back to It's Delicious, It's Vegan, It's Cuban, the book that takes all the classic Cuban recipes and turns them into vegan classic Cuban recipes. They're still classic Cuban recipes, everybody. You just don't have to sacrifice like you think you might. But let's hear it from the author himself, Raydel Hernandez. So you were telling us it took about 5 years to take all of your grandmother's classic recipes and turn them into the book.
Yes, it took 5 years to turn 100 of them into vegan classic Cuban recipes. I still have probably about another couple of hundred recipes. But yes, the hardest part was finding the actual proteins that made sense. Because there's a lot of shredded beef dishes, there's a lot of chicken dishes, there's a lot of things that you kind of try to mimic so that it looks presentable and it looks like what you're used to eat. It came down to about 4 or 5. I use Butler's soy curls, which is one of the principal ingredients for the substitutes. I'm sure you're aware of them, right? I use a lot of seitan. I have jackfruit in some of the recipes, and the other substitute is cauliflower, which I have grown to love. Cauliflower has to be prepared a certain way so that it works. And once you have that, there is no sacrifice to becoming a vegan, especially if you follow the recipes in my book. because they're all hearty, they're all satisfying, and none of them. I mean, I presented my recipes to people who are not. Well, first of all, I never presented like a vegan recipe. I just presented like what I made.
Food.
And exactly, food. I don't make the distinction anymore because it's kind of, you're kind of setting yourself up for, a little bit of pushback. So I just make it. And I got to tell you, I mean, I very rarely have. Actually, I can't think of anyone who's ever said they didn't like what I made. And I've had people tell me, look, if I can eat like this, I can eat like this every day.
Yeah.
So that's the important thing. I mean, people get tied up with, whether you're a carnivore or a non-carnivore. I think that's all silly. It's a question of, do you want to be healthy or do you want to make yourself sick? That's how I look at it.
100%. Yeah. And do you want a life on pills?
Exactly.
Which is not just an uncomfortable way to go through life and, may or may not really help you. It's one thing to reverse a disease. It's another thing to live with it and just kind of hobble through. But also it's very expensive, a life on pills. And you're talking about cauliflower as your sort of drug of choice, so there's a lot of financial benefit to that as well. Okay. So you're going through your own health reversal. And then I'll say through that, maybe even a rediscovery of your traditional dishes, because you get to spend time with them and recreate them a la vegan, we'll say. Did you ever have any points when you were like, I don't know if I can do it? I actually not sure if this is going to work out.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the beginning, I wasn't exactly sure. I have an aunt. She's my father's sister, and she is like an authority on Cuban food. She knows how it's supposed to look, how it's supposed to taste. She knows the details that it takes to, to take it from just a recipe to like authentic. And I would take all my recipes to her, like whenever I experimented with something, and she was my barometer. If it passed her, then I knew it was good. And I've passed almost all of them past her at this point. And incidentally, she went from carnivore to, she's not a vegan, she's a vegetarian, but she's 70 something. So when she made the change, she was 60, I'd say she's 67 or so, maybe 65. And I thought that was very important because, we're talking about years of a Cuban lady who's also, by the way, a fabulous cook. I mean, if I wrote another book, it'd be her recipes. And she was basically telling me every time we sat down to eat, she's like, this is unbelievable. It tastes the same way as how traditionally it should be. And then she was having health problems too. She was on cholesterol pills that were really bothering her joints. And I said, look, this is not an experiment for me. I'm going in this path. So why don't you just try it? Just give it a shot for 30 days and see what happens. And it wasn't an easy 30 days. She was resistant the whole way, dragging her feet and kicking and screaming. But you know what? She started to understand that the actual meats that you eat have no flavor. The only way to flavor them is with the condiments that you use.
It's all about the spices, people. Spices is what makes meat taste like meat. Well, we can do spices on other things. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but for real, that's the truth. I mean, it all has to do with how you season it and how you present it. And if you can find something, and let's be honest, I mean, most of the vegan plant substitutes for meat are very neutral in taste. Some of them lean towards chicken, but I think the grand majority are pretty neutral. So you can flavor them whichever way you want. And I mean, you really don't miss out on a thing. So she converted and her health benefits were amazing. I mean, I think in the 30 days that she did the experiment, her cholesterol dropped 90 points.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, literally the doctor was asking her, he said to her, he's like, look, you might be taking too much of the medicine. And my aunt was like, I haven't taken a single pill in a month. All I did was just take out all the animal products. And the doctor they never have anything to say when you say those things. You ever notice that?
Yes, yeah. That you figured it out without them. And then they're not supportive.
Right. Well, they pat you on the back and they go, well, but it's true. And it's odd. You would think that they'd be happy that you figured it out. But, he was, congratulatory and immediately went to the vitamin B12 thing. You have to make sure you get vitamin B12 as if the hospitals are full of people who have vitamin B12 deficiencies,
Yeah. I've yet to meet that person or the protein deficient person. I haven't seen that person in the emergency room either.
Yeah,
But I
there's no
see
such
lots of
thing.
people with heart disease and diabetes. Certainly see that one, which of course is lifestyle and diet related. Okay, so it's your aunt that dropped 90 points. Did you have any change other than the gout? Did you notice any other changes for yourself?
Well, yeah, the gout disappeared. My cholesterol dropped, I want to say about 100 points.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd say in the first 3 months, I lost probably about 30, 25 to 30 pounds. And I wasn't even trying. I was just eating twice as much, and it's just not calorie dense food. So you can eat as much as you want, and you still lose weight. The thing that I noticed a lot, and I think it's the key to my
Hold on.
happiness.
I want to hear about the key to happiness because who doesn't want to know about that right when we get back to break? Oh gosh, you guys, I'm sorry. We'll be right back. It's Plant-Based Life and Style. Oh my gosh. Okay, everybody, we'll be right back. I want to hear about that key to happiness. I love that. Food just touches so many parts of our lives that we think it's just about, replacing maybe saturated fat or something. And then you realize, oh, no, actually, I'm going to shift up my whole life for the better. And it's going to really put me on an entirely new path. It's just so very exciting. Okay, we're going to get right back with our guest. And here we go. It's Plant-Based Life and Style. I'm Elysabeth Alfano. I'm back with Raydel Hernandez, the author of It's Delicious, It's Vegan, It's Cuban. So we're talking about how, you start to change your diet and then you start to feel better and then you start to give up the pills and then you want to keep feeling better. So you make more shifts in your diet. And lo and behold, you find yourself 30 days later, 60 days later, whatever your personal journey is, that you've switched up your entire diet and how this affects your lifestyle. So I'm wondering, we were talking about before the break, okay, so you dropped about 100 points in cholesterol and you got rid of gout. What were some of the other benefits that you realized?
Well, I think the major benefit, I mean, the actual medical benefits are amazing, right? The cholesterol drop and the weight loss and all that. You can get that done with pills, and you can get that done with exercise. I mean, to me, that's a very special attribute. But I think that the key to my happiness is that I am completely unburdened of my
Yes.
health. Like, I remember thinking all the time, should I have that ice cream? Should I eat that? Is it going to make me sicker? Do I need to change this? Do I need to change that? I don't think of any of that anymore. I just eat my food because I know it's good for me. My body reacts to it in a wonderful way. And I don't have that monkey on my back about what I should eat. Now, that doesn't mean that everything automatically becomes perfect, but you'd be amazed at how much different your life becomes when you become a vegan. It's almost like I was on a different podcast and I tried to explain the feeling to someone, but it's almost impossible to explain it to someone unless the only comparison I have is if you've had children, the love that you have for your children, you can only express that to other people who have children. Like, they will never, if you don't have children, you'll never understand what that love is like. Well, veganism, it's kind of the same way. Like, if you don't do it, there's no words that can express to you how wonderful you feel unless you do it yourself. And I know that sounds kind of corny, but the truth is your body, it's almost like the natural aspects of your body, everything just starts to run differently. It's almost like the engine smooths out. You don't need as much sleep. Your mind is clear. Your body responds. I mean, even with simple things like exercise. I remember when I used to exercise, I would get so sore and my chest would hurt for weeks. Now, nothing. Now I exercise and I get a little fatigue. Don't get me wrong, but I don't have that soreness anymore. I don't have inflammation. I don't have any of those things that bother most people. I'll be 50 this year, and I feel like I'm in my 20s. And I didn't feel like that when I was in my 30s because I was still a non-vegan.
I hear that from so many people that going into their 50s, they feel better than they did going into their 40s and definitely even in their 30s. And so it's this extra benefit that you don't think you're going to get. You sort of say, well, yeah, I might drop some weight. And okay, I guess my cholesterol should go down, or, the pre-heart condition, in theory, this should address it. But then there's this whole other like weight that's been lifted. You get this huge boost of energy that, again, it's really hard to explain that feeling to someone if they're not going through it. But maybe even put another way, you don't realize how much baggage you're carrying until you lift it. And then you're like, wow, I was really held back by not feeling my best, because you acclimate to it and you just think, well, I'm always going to be tired and I'm getting older. So I guess I should feel sluggish and I guess I should feel foggy. And of course, I'm going to have afternoon slumps. And you just take this as like, well, I guess that's how it goes. And then when you take that away, you realize, wow, I was really, suffering there in a way.
Absolutely. You don't realize how bad you have it until you make that change.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's like everything is just better. The food you eat, everything is easier to cook. There's no risk of killing yourself with any kind of like bacteria from a chicken or something. There's no sanitation process when you're done cooking. It's just vegetables, and many times you don't even need to fry too many things. I mean, you can make things much quicker because nothing has to be medium rare, nothing has to be fully cooked. I mean, obviously you want to cook food, but it's all those other things that you take precautions about. I mean, it's so odd when you think about it, right? And it doesn't dawn on people because I think it's way too culturally commonplace. But I mean, chicken is like a dangerous item. Like you can get sick from it, and other people that touch it, with salmonella. I mean, you can't go on an airplane with raw chicken; they won't allow you, right? Because you can get the whole plane sick. And yet you're willing to cook that. You're willing to believe that if you cook it, it's okay to eat, and then you eat it. And it's the oddest thing to me. Like if it was anything other than chicken, would you really eat it? I don't think I would. Well, I don't anymore, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like I think culturally, if someone else told you, well, if you don't cook that, it's dangerous to eat, would you really eat it? I don't think I would. Now knowing what I know, I never would, but it seems so odd that people are okay with it.
Yeah. And what's even more strange to me is that people defend the right to eat that thing that's going to make them sick. Like they're vehemently defending, like, no, I want that thing that, if I cook it incorrectly, it's going to make me sick. And even if I cook it correctly, it's going to make me sick. And, we're not even talking about animals or the environment, but, the list is long about how that thing is really not good, but I want it so badly, and then really even what I feel, I haven't eaten meat in a while, but I mean, I just remember, of course, I grew up on meat like everybody else. And chicken used to taste different as a kid than it did like by the time I was in my 30s. I mean, I just don't think the way it's, the animals are farmed, et cetera, to me, chicken lost taste over the years. So it's not even like it's that great of a thing. You know what I mean? But yeah, people want it for sure. Okay. So you go through this transformation for yourself. In the beginning, were people supportive, or were they sort of like, oh, this is a crazy lark?
I think, well, the people closest to me were supportive. My wife was supportive. She converted as well to veganism. It's funny you say that. I have close friends who are my age that we worked together 25 years ago. And even though we don't communicate every single day or every single month about what we're doing, we somehow got on the same path independent of each other. I have a good friend named Chuck. He became a vegan when I became a vegan, but we never really spoke about it. Cool. Like he kind of was experimenting and I was experimenting. And then when we talked about it, we're like, oh, well, I'm doing this and you're doing that. And we decided to get together and compare notes. So I had support that way. And I think most people want to make a change, but I think that what they are is they're afraid that they're going to give things up. Like they think that somehow in your lifespan, somehow that not having a hamburger is going to change your life drastically, and never having one again, which you don't necessarily have to take that stance. I mean, you can maybe be vegan most of the time, and if you have that craving, maybe you indulge. I mean, it's better than not doing it at all.
Yeah.
I don't see how, it's very curious to me how people hang on to that so tightly, when in reality, it's just, maybe 3 kinds of animals that you may not eat anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, I wonder if the flip side is also true. So we're talking about people hanging on to it and thinking like, oh my gosh, my life will be so much different, or maybe a sacrifice, or maybe worse if I don't have this thing that's going to make me sick. But then I'm wondering, your life as an example, did people come around that say like, hey, I never thought this was going to work, but it did. And how'd you do it? And I want to try it.
Yeah. That happened. That happened with my friend Chuck. My friend Chuck's story is interesting because he was a vegan, and like I said, he became a vegan independent of me. And he has a Wall Street type of job. So his job involves a lot of entertaining at steakhouses and all that stuff that goes hand in hand with Wall Street and entertainment. So he was a vegan, and then he left being a vegan. And shortly after leaving being a vegan, he has a heart attack. So he went from being healthy to having a heart attack. And this is when it all kind of came together for him and for me, because you start to realize that people in general don't realize that the food is killing us. Even the doctors in the hospitals. He called me from the hospital. This happened to him in Denver, I believe. And he called me from some hospital in Denver. And he said, look, I just had a heart attack. I'm okay. And the first thing that they fed him in Denver as a heart attack victim, right, was a meat lasagna with cheese.
Gosh, and you wonder why you're sick. Yeah.
You wonder why you're sick, and you stay sick, right? So what he ended up doing was, this was obviously the last straw for him, right? Because he made himself sick. So he went full unadulterated vegan, even to the point where he went raw foods for a while because he felt like he needed to. And you know what? The doctors, even though once they categorize you as a coronary patient, you never leave that categorization. But the doctor told him, he said, look, you have no signs of ever being a heart patient. It's all gone. Yeah. And that's amazing to me.
Yeah. And to me, that's a testament of the human body. You know, that we can for decades be putting things in our body that aren't great for us. And then here you go. You give your body, 30 days of the nutrients it needs, or, 60 days, whatever it is for your particular case. And you look at your body come back to help you out. It's just amazing.
Yeah. The body heals. And unfortunately, people, I think it's a cultural thing in this country. Everybody wants the quick fix. Everybody wants it to be a 30-day, quote unquote cleanse, or whatever the term is. And then they go back to doing what they're doing. And they think that for whatever reasons, that one little period of 30 days is going to change your life. I mean, it's going to change your life for those 30 days. If you really want to be on the other side of that, and you don't have to worry about whether you need a cleansing or whether or not you need to eat lean this and lean that, just give it up. And it all falls into place. It all comes together so easily. And it's amazing. I mean, I can't talk enough about it. And if I can convince everybody, I would do it, because the benefits are so much greater than not doing it.
Yeah. I love your story because it's so inspirational. And it's so like the story of the every person, who we all grew up eating what we ate, and you don't think it's bad for you. And then one day you realize, wow, I've dug myself into a health hole, and now I'm going to dig myself out. And it's very empowering because you actually don't have to rely on that doctor, that appointment that you can never get for 3 months or whatever it is. You actually have the power in a very short amount of time for very little money. We're talking rice and beans, if that's how you want to go, and avocados and salsa. You can turn it around. We'll be right back. We're going to break, and we'll come right back. I just love this story. Don't go away, everybody, because we got lots of tips for you when we start our next segment. And of course, the book it's delicious, it's vegan, it's Cuban. Everybody wants to get it. Okay, here we are back on air. It's Plant-Based by Life and Style. I'm Elysabeth Alfano. I'm with Raydel Hernandez. His book, It's Delicious, It's Vegan, and It is Cuban, is out on Amazon. You can get it wherever you want. You can also go to his website, which is at the bottom of my Facebook screen here, vegancubano.com. I'm not saying that with the right accent, of course, because I want everyone to get the letters. Okay, so before we went to break, we were talking about this incredible transformation that you've done. But of course, you grew up a meat eater. In fact, you really relied on it as part of your deep Cuban heritage. So for those meat eaters out there who are just thinking, I don't know if I can do it, help me through, what are your top 5 tips to start working out the meat and bringing in the plants for your health?
Well, I don't know if I have 5, but I definitely have tips. It doesn't have to be an all or none thing. Okay. I think, and I think most people would agree, do it gradually. It's almost like running, right? You don't run 6 miles your first time. You run, a half a mile or whatever, 100 yards, and you build and you build and you build and you get used to it. It's the same thing. Maybe you pick a day of the week that's, I wouldn't even say vegan, vegetarian day. So you start gradually working your way out of it. The other tip that I could tell you from my personal experience is you are giving up nothing.
Yeah.
You don't have to give up a thing. There's meat substitutes out there. If you want a hamburger, you can eat a plant-based hamburger. I've lost my taste for meats. Anything that's flavored like meat, I don't really care for it that much anymore. But I mean, we live in a world now where you can go to Burger King and have the Impossible Burger. That's another thing. Like you're not giving up anything. There's no sacrifice. The other tip I would tell you is, this is a big one, and it's hard for people to really wrap their heads around this. You're brainwashed. Okay. You have to unbrainwash yourself. You have to unstick yourself from the tar, because everyone is trying to sell you something. And that is no different in the meat world, in the food world. They all want to tell you that, somehow convince you that what they're selling is good for you when it's really not. And they confuse the situation by misinformation all over the internet. Unfortunately, in this country, if you Google something, whoever pays the most comes up first. And that's not necessarily the best thing, because they're trying to sell you something that isn't true. Another tip, you have to self-research. You can't take it from me. You can't take it from Elysabeth. You have to read and read and read. What I did was, I started off with a few documentaries. The most famous one, I think, is Forks Over Knives. That's one that really turned the page for me. But if you look in the credits, they list all the scientists and all the studies. And I contacted those people on email. And I said, look, I saw this documentary. Can you send me the research? And they all send it to you, free of charge. It's all public information at this point. And I read everything. I mean, I can't tell you that I understood every single experiment, but I read it all firsthand. And it's been common knowledge that the foods that you eat affect your health for at least 80 years. And it's all out there. So those would be my tips. I think I hit 4.
You did hit 4.
Okay.
You did hit 4, but I'll give a 5th, which kind of riffs off of what you were saying in 3 and 4, but you must advocate for yourselves. So you were saying you must research for yourself. Absolutely 100%, but you must advocate for yourself, your health. You have to take your own health into your own hands. Even farming it out to your doctor is not always in your own best interest. So take the time, start gradually, whatever works for you. Again, we're not here to tell you what to do. Figure it out for yourself, but it has to be your own journey, because there are a lot of forces out there swaying you one way or the other.
That's true. That's true.
So when you decided to veganize all of your traditional Cuban recipes, were you a cook before? Or you just decided, now I'm going to dive in because I don't want these to not be in my life?
No, I was a pretty serious home cook.
Okay.
Never a chef. I'm not classically trained. I learned how to cook from my family. And through repetition, I've gotten some expertise on the stuff that I cook anyway. I've flirted with the idea of a restaurant or a catering business, but at the end of the day, that just seems like it's way too much work. Especially if you've never done it before. But that's how I learned to cook. And, and I'm limited to the vegan cuisine that I know. Like I'm not an inventor of meals. I probably have about 300 recipes. And that's what I stick to. And that's what I am. I'm a home cook.
That's awesome. So I want to tell everyone again, you can see it at the bottom of your screen, vegancubano.com. And then, of course, the book is It's Delicious, It's Vegan, It's Cuban. Of course, you can get that on Amazon. Some of the recipes, I'm going to maybe mispronounce these, but chicharrones with portobello mushrooms instead of pork, arroz con pollo with soy curls instead of chicken, and bistec de palomilla. Oh, gosh.
Bistec de palomilla, yep.
Okay, bistec de palomilla with cauliflower instead of steak, and you can have it all. You don't have to give up your favorite. Is chimichurri Cuban? It is, yes?
Chimichurri is Argentinian.
Oh, gosh darn it. Well, okay, you don't have to give up that either. You can have the things you love. So speaking of the things you love. So a couple exit questions as we head on out. Okay, you're running around, you're super busy, you don't have time for lunch. What is your go-to snack?
I never not have food around, because that's one of the things that being a vegan requires a little bit of a commitment to work, because you can't you just can't throw something on the grill, right? So I always have rices and things that I cook on the weekends frozen so I can get them. But I think a quick snack, soy curls are very easy to turn into food. And you add water, you hydrate them. It's a great product. I don't know if that company is doing very well. They should be, because their product is solid. And you add water, it turns into kind of like shredded meat, and you can turn that into anything. You put it in a salad. It's very fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Once it's like anything, you learn 2 or 3 tricks, let's say, and then you have your go-to, like you're really running around fast and you have your quick way to make soy curls, or you have your quick way to, I make a lot of cheese out of carrots and potatoes and nutritional yeast. So I'll share that recipe with you if you want. It's so super easy. A little bit of olive brine and, salt, and I move on. I roast these things in the oven, put them in a blender, and then I've got cheese and I just move on. I mean, these things are very simple. Once you get them under your belt, it's like anything else. So, okay. Another quick question on the way out. What do you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now, besides switching over to vegan?
Well, I mean, philosophically, what I know now is that whatever you're dealing with now is completely temporary. It all moves on. It all works out. What you're stressing about today, you won't even think about 10 years from now.
I love that. And that's going to stay with me. I love that. And that's great advice for everybody listening to us today, too. We will move through this. So whatever you have going on your plate, this too shall pass, as they say. So, okay, we've talked about it a lot. It's delicious. It's vegan. It's Cuban. You can get it on Amazon.com and vegancubano.com. So you can get Raydel Hernandez's information, tips, recipes, etc. Get the book, particularly if you guys are Cuban. Come on, have at it. This is very fun. I'm so glad to see that the tradition remains. So thank you, Raydel, for being with me today. I super appreciate that. For me, everybody, we're over and out, but I'll say if you want to find me, come find me on LinkedIn and also my website at ElisabethAlfano.com. Until I see everybody again next week, thanks for all you do, and thanks for being vegan. Bye, Raydel. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Raydel, stay put. Everybody else, see you next week.